Princess Dracula, Book 1, Part 13.
The waterfall was high enough that Ruxandra saw the rocks below before the water drove her into them. Her head, back and legs hit hard. Pain lanced through her. She thought something had snapped. The water grabbed her again, driving her off the rocks and deep into the water and shoving her down with the force of 1,000 hands. The pressure flattened her against the bottom of the river and held her there. She struggled and managed to turn upward to see the surface of the water, 30 feet above. The pressure was too much, the water too strong. It would not let her go.
I'm going to be free soon, thank God. Instead of terrifying her as it once might have, the thought calmed her. With a deliberate slowness, she blew out all the air in her lungs, watching the bubbles rise and get caught in the whirling maelstrom above her. When there was nothing left, Ruxandra closed her eyes and waited for her body to breathe in the river water. It would hurt, and she would struggle, but it would not last long. Then she would be free. She waited, and waited, and waited. She opened her eyes. She was still underwater, still trapped beneath the waterfall. She lay, unable to move, not breathing, and still alive. Her body wasn't desperate for air. There was no sudden gulp of water or overwhelming urge to inhale. She was lying there, cold and submerged, but alive. No, I want to be free. Inside her stomach, as if in answer, the hunger stirred again. I must get out from here. I must find more rabbits, or squirrels or something, so I don't... The pain in her body vanished as the broken parts healed themselves. She dug her talons into the riverbed beneath her and used them to pull herself along. It was a slow, painstaking process, moving only inches at a time as the river pounded down on her. Several large branches smashed through the water's surface above her. One almost touched her before its own buoyancy took it away. She kept creeping forward, and the pressure of the falls grew less and less. Then she was free. The current grabbed at her, twisting her back and forth. She dug her hands deeper into the river bottom to keep her grip. When her head broke the water for the first time, the frozen, ice-covered trees and cold, rocky ground were the most welcome sights she had ever seen. She struggled to her feet, exhausted, and stumbled away from the river's edge, looking for a place to hide. As the sky began to lighten, she dug a hole in the side of a gully between the roots of a tree. When the hole was deep enough that no light could reach her, she slept. When she woke up, she couldn't move. For a moment, she panicked, certain something was wrong with her body, that she had damaged herself beyond repair. She forced her arms to move, to rise from the ground. They jerked free with a tearing of cloth. Her dress was frozen stiff. It had stuck to her skin and the ground. She smiled, then began laughing. A soft, helpless, almost hysterical laugh that filled the hole and stayed just on the edge of sobbing, of all the stupid things to happen. Ruxandra rocked back and forth, listening to the ice in the dress crackle and tear as it broke free of the ground. She kept at it until she was free and the dress was almost soft. Then she rose and slipped away. The hunting went slowly. Rabbits were fast and hard to track. She caught one but lost 3. Squirrels were worse because they could climb trees faster than she could run. By the time the sky started to change colour for morning, she'd drunk 6 rabbits and 4 squirrels. She still wondered why blood mostly looked like liquid gold still, but it mattered not. Rabbits tasted better. She liked the fast pulse of their lives, the thin, skittering delight she could feel as a memory in the terrified flesh. Squirrels were more ordinary. There was caution and craftiness in their blood. But either one was fine. Her belly was full and satiated. She made her way back to the cave. Perhaps I can survive this way. If I could survive this way, I won't be a monster anymore. I can be a hermit, living in the woods and praying until I die. I guess I'd be a monster to rabbits. It's going to take a lot of rabbits, though. If I can last until spring, it will be easier. There's always lots of game in the spring. The very idea of spring seemed impossible. The thought that the snow would vanish and the world would ever be warm again seemed ridiculous to her as she headed back to the dark, cold lair she had fashioned. It would happen. She knew as much. At that moment, with the ice from her dress pricking her skin and the cold, hard ground beneath her feet, It seemed so far away. Something growled. Ruxandra froze. Her eyes darted back and forth. Shapes hid in the underbrush, long shapes with fur camouflaging them in the dark woods. I wasn't paying attention. I should have noticed them before. She turned in a slow circle, watching as they moved into sight. Wolves. They were lean, all bones and muscle. Their mottled hair went from white to grey to dark brown to near black. Their brown eyes shone with intelligence. Their white teeth gleamed in the darkness. There were 12 of them, surrounding her on 3 sides, blocking her from her cave. Almost as one, they growled. Ruxandra swallowed hard. The wolves on the sides stayed where they were, watching her. In front of her, 3 stepped out of the shadows and into full view. They were larger than the others. Their muscles rippled under their fur as they walked forward. Their growls grew louder. Then the middle one, a large female with deep black fur, stepped forward. Her lips pulled back, revealing teeth as sharp and dangerous as Ruxandra's. She snarled, sending shivers of fear through Ruxandra. Why haven't they attacked? The lead wolf snarled again and tossed her head. Ruxandra stumbled back a step, then another. The wolf matched her steps, going 1 forward for each that Ruxandra went back. Along the sides, the other wolves faded back. They know what I am. The realization shook Ruxandra to the core. They know I'm not human, that I'm a demon, and they don't want me in their territory. Eating all the rabbits? Ruxandra started giggling. She couldn't help herself. Of all the strange and ridiculous things that had happened to her, this was by far the strangest. They're mad at me. The lead wolf snarled again, and the humour of the situation mostly vanished. Ruxandra kept backing away. The wolves on either side spread out and formed a line that reached wide across the forest. The wolves following her drew even with the line and stopped. It's the edge of their territory. They're showing me that I am not allowed past this point. She kept walking backward, her eyes on the wolves until she was well away from them. Then she turned and ran. They outnumber me 12 to 1. She dodged trees and jumped over underbrush. They could have attacked me if they wanted, but they didn't. Am I that powerful? The thought was both intoxicating and terrifying. No! She forced it from her mind and kept running. Dawn was coming, and she needed to find new shelter before the sun broke the horizon. I will be a holy hermit. I will live off the bounty God provides and spend my nights in prayer until I die. It took Ruxandra a month to figure out how to stalk prey, rather than just chase it so they made no sound on the forest floor. But hunger was a good teacher and was far older and wiser than she. She had other help too, though her helpers didn't know it. She watched the foxes and the weasels slip through the night, creep up on their prey, then leap forward with lightning-fast attacks. She watched how their feet moved on the snow, how they inched forward until they were within striking distance. And when she was not hunting, she was praying. Though she could not stand the sun, she saw her dark world with crystal clarity. She witnessed the beauty of the stars in their dance above her head and the slow progress of the moon, from sliver to shining ball to darkness and back to sliver. She saw the crystals of the snow and the reflection of the moonlight in ice and the still, perfect shapes of the sleeping trees. And she gave thanks to God for each moment. And in watching the world, Ruxandra learned she could sit still for hours, none of her muscles hurting or twitching or going to sleep. She could stand like a tree, observing the play of hunter, and hunted until she knew the pace and pattern of each animal. She saw that the rabbit's moves contrasted the fox's and that the weasel and the field mouse each had a skill the other lacked. Ruxandra remembered the old nun, Sister Agathe, saying that God made every creature one by one, down to the whiskers, and she had been right. They all glimmered with the perfection of their making, their exquisite adaptation to the snow, the woods, the myriad hiding places, each other. She prayed her thanks to God for letting her see this too. Then the game grew scarce. The rabbits and squirrels were all gone. The weasels and foxes had left too. There was no food to be had. One night, she finally dreamed again. She was on her bed, in her room in the convent.